I want you to look at this article. It was written by a 13-year-old boy about music therapy. I really relate to what he's saying about music therapy because when I was a child, I remember being so connected to music and so intrigued by the way it would make me feel. Every day I would go through new pieces of music or I'd listen to the same album on repeat. New pieces of music would make me feel, would put me to sleep, would give me the chills, and it would just help me carry on with daily life. Slowly as time went by, I began to understand that music was helping me understand emotions in a very deep and profound way. And soon it was becoming a powerful tool for me to channel inner pain. So, of course, at the age of 18, after high school, I wanted to study music. And coming from a Gujarati family, that is really, really weird. So I had to convince my parents saying, I want to study music, I want to go abroad. And they're looking at me like, what are you going to do with music? Anyways, so we were fighting a lot and arguing, and after much debate, they said, okay, we'll let you go as long as you come back and pursue something more conventional. It didn't matter at that point. I said, okay, great, I'm going to go. So I packed my bags and went to London. Now, a year later, I come back to Mumbai, and it's time for me to make that higher decision of what am I going to study. I was really interested in mental health, but a couple of years ago, or maybe 6 or 7 years ago, when I was deciding what to do, the lack of awareness around mental health and psychology pushed me to take a more regular path in mass media and communications. So, after I graduated from college, I was immediately hit by the real world. And I started comparing myself to friends around me who had that 9 to 5 job. And I quit my band and I went and found one for myself in event management and marketing. As days went on, I began to observe that people around me were often overworked and overstressed. And I became someone that they'd talk to about their emotions. Not only that, I found myself being very drawn to understand their experiences with stress, anxiety, and depression. And I was thinking to myself at that point that this normal job, this job that society sort of approves, helped me feel safe and secure. But I wasn't happy. I hadn't played music in 2 years. Something that was so passionate to me was just gone away. That void was becoming deeper and deeper, and I had to do something about it. Around that time, I was introduced to music therapy, and immediately this got my mind thinking. But there was another problem out here. It would require me to leave home and go to Pondicherry again. Well, not again, leave home again. So I already left home once and convinced my parents to let me study music. And now I had to tell them I want to study music therapy, something which is completely unheard of, right? And during that time, feelings of anxiety and stress started taking over again. Was I making the right decision? What if this wouldn't work out? This field is so new in India. So during that time, I was reading a lot of Japanese philosophy, and I clearly remember this. Through that philosophy, I asked myself 4 questions. What is it that I like? What am I good at? What does the world around me need? And how am I going to get paid for it? I like music. I'm good at understanding people. The world around me needs help. These 3 answers were enough for me to go to Pondicherry and study music therapy. What is music therapy? You know, in India, there's a common misunderstanding that music therapy is often like sound healing, or where you get these Tibetan bowls and play it and the person relaxes or the patient relaxes and he's somehow going to be cured. However, music therapy is a clinical and evidence-based use of music and all of its elements by a trained professional to achieve non-musical goals. Researchers are discovering every day that music has a strong tendency or an ability to affect almost every part of the brain. Think about this. When you're listening to a song, you might be thinking of a past memory. You might be simply thinking about beautiful fields around you. Either way, your visual cortex is working. You might be distinguishing between different sounds from the verse and the chorus. Either way, your auditory cortex is working. You might be feeling something different with each different song that you're listening to: sadness, happiness, joy, nostalgia. That's the work of the limbic system. All human beings have the tendency and the capability to appreciate and understand music. When a child is in utero, the first thing that it hears is the mother's heartbeat and the gush of the womb. So it's already predisposed to music. I'm going to talk to you about some of the work I do in music therapy and maybe try and give you some examples. So, when I went to Pondicherry for the first time, I also had to wear a white coat. And that really, really freaked me out because I'm walking in the campus and there are doctors running for surgeries and diagnoses, etc., with a white coat and a stethoscope. And here I am running with my guitar with a white coat and headphones on my neck. So I'm still considering my options out here. Should I pack my bag and just go back to event and marketing? But anyways, the first month, my mentor, she told me that you're going to be posted in palliative care. Palliative care, we had to work with people who were diagnosed with cancer. And again, coming from Mumbai, from such a fast-paced society, here I am in a hospital trying to help people who are probably going to die, right? So my first patient was a gentleman who had second-stage cancer. And me and my colleague walk into the OPD, and we saw him just sitting there by his bedside and talking to himself and blaming God as well. He was in a state of denial. Complete negativity took over him. I don't blame him, right? Because what happens when someone says you have cancer? Now, remember this, he was on second stage, which means there was chances for survival. But he was in such a negative state that he didn't want to get treated. He was giving up. So with the help of my colleague, we spoke to him and somehow we got his favorite artist's name, MGR, a very famous South Indian musician. And we went back and researched songs about hope, motivation, joy, and thought we'd go and play it for him on a speaker. But nothing was happening. And at that point, I realized something has to change. Some sort of intervention has to change. So we went back to our OPD, and I told my colleague, let's play this for him. I'm going to learn it in Tamil, and I'm going to learn the chords, and you're going to sing, and let's just go to his bedside and play for him. And we did this for 3 days, every morning. On the third day, he looked up at us and began to cry. And he said, no one has done something like this in his life at a time when everything's failing, at a time when there's no hope. 2 people were there pushing him to carry on. And he clearly told us that he wants to call his daughter up, his granddaughter up, and tell her that he's going to be okay and he's going to get treatment. And he did, eventually. So that's the power of music and how it can evoke feelings or give you that hope when there is none. Let me take you on to the work I do with kids on the autism spectrum. I've worked with a lot of children diagnosed with autism, and what I'm realizing is that each child living with autism has their own unique and individual characteristics. Therefore, it's a really, really vast spectrum. But what are some of the common needs that a child has on the autism spectrum is the need to feel normal in society, the need to bond with others. A lot of children on the spectrum have impaired communication, repetitive words, lack of self-awareness around them. So my job as a music therapist is to help them maybe learn new words, help them feel safe, help them release their emotions, which will eventually lead to satisfaction. So now if I have to work with a child and I want to teach him basic greetings so that tomorrow when he goes out or when people come to his house, he's able to say hello or he's able to give a high five. An interesting fact of the brain, And this is similar, I find this very similar with people who really like chanting or devotional music or something, is when the brain is listening to something that's repetitive, the amygdala automatically relaxes and it allows to process information with much more ease. So for a child, I would probably use something like "Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are." But I changed the lyrics out here. I'd use the same melody. It's a very repetitive melody, right? It's not too complicated. And I'd take my guitar out and I'd look at the child and I'd go, "Hello, hello, hello, my friend. It is time to say hello. We are going to try and say hi. We are going to try and give a high five." And I'd sing this 3 times, 4 times. But in the end, I'd leave that space, something called as time delay, for the child to respond. So I'd go, "Hello, hello, hello, my friend. It is time to say hey." And he'll complete it, "Hello," or he'll take his hand and give me a high five. So he's learning basic greetings to that. What about children? When I work with children in group therapy, a major goal that I find is giving these kids a chance to bond with each other. So when they come for my sessions, they already are looking at a floor filled with different types of instruments, rhythmic instruments, melodic instruments, shakers, simple instruments that they can use that they don't need no training for. Think about this. Have you all watched a live performance or a band? Yeah. Is the band communicating with each other on some level? Yes, no, maybe? Interestingly, that communication is happening, but first they're communicating with their instrument. So when the children come in together, 4 or 5 or 6 of them, they each take different instruments and they begin to play with each other. And they begin to copy each other's rhythm. And then they start smiling. So the next time they come, they're already aware of who's around. And it makes it easier. It makes it less awkward for them. Last year, a client of mine, about 65 years old, he had a really bad car accident, because of which a part of his brain was damaged, because of which he was not able to walk anymore. I wanted to help him begin walking with music. I'm going to need your help for this right now. Just repeat after me. Fabulous. What was happening out here? Your brain was processing my rhythm and then responding to it. Remember when I stopped clapping, did you all still continue clapping before we changed into the faster rhythm? Or think about this. How many of you kids listen to electronic dance music? Wow. What is so unique about electronic dance music? Or forget electronic dance music. How many of you all have gone to a party where there's music? What do you all do? You all begin dancing. Or what do you all do when the electronic dance song is really building up and that so-called drop happens? You all move, right? But have you ever thought that I'm going to do this step or that step or this or that? No. Again, your body, your mind, your brain is anticipating what's going to happen next. It's getting entrained with that music. So with my client who is not able to walk, I took my guitar out and I played a simple rhythm on 40 BPM, really slow. 1, 2, 3, something very similar to what I did right now. And I was getting his brain entrained with my rhythm. Then he began to walk on 40 BPM, really small steps. And when that was happening, I knew that his brain is entrained, right, with my rhythm. So I had the ability to modify it. Remember, again, when you all were clapping with me, I quickly changed the rhythm. You all quickly changed it as well, right? So I modified it to 60 BPM, then to 75 BPM. Weeks went by, months went by. Today, he's able to walk on 120 BPM, which is almost like fast walking. So remember when I said that that music has a strong power to affect the entire brain almost, right? So in neurological cases, a certain part of your brain may be damaged, but when there's music played or when you're involved in some sort of musical activity, the music can actually bypass the damaged hemisphere or area of the brain and stimulate the one that needs to be stimulated. That's how he started to walk with music. It's interesting because I think 6 years ago, I would spend a lot of my time rehearsing in my band and performing live. And I don't think I miss it today because I feel like I'm doing something very similar. I have so many clients, but each client has different needs. Each client's musical preference is different. Every day I'm learning new music, I'm increasing my repertoire. And I'm still performing, but for a different cause and a different reason. You know, like Dr. Sam clearly said, life is tough, and it's going to be tough. Everyone knows we're born and we're going to die. Think of it as a journey that you have to go through. You're going to have heartbreaks. You're going to be sick, maybe. You might lose someone. It's going to keep happening. Life is painful. But with that pain, there is some sort of beauty. There is magical moments that you can see. When I work with clients who are suffering, I feel grateful that I can help them or give them that hope when there is none, or make them feel something that they'll probably never forget. With each note, I feel like I'm creating a moment that they'll never forget. And that's something that makes me really happy when I go home. I'm able to sleep really peacefully at night. You may be 18, 19, or in your early 20s. It doesn't matter. You have to keep going with that experience. Do you remember the article that I was talking about earlier? About that boy? Funny enough, a couple of months ago, my family had found this article from my yearbook, and it was actually me who had written that when I was 14. I had no idea I'm going to be doing music therapy. All I knew when I was a kid, up till my early 20s, is I just want to play music. Of course, when I was 17, 18, I wanted to be a rock star, but that's a different story. But my point here is, like I said, no matter what age you are, no matter if you're in your early 20s, 18, you are going to go through certain experiences. What's important is, whatever you're doing at that point, you do it with honesty, with consistency, and with conviction. Because what you're meant to do will have its way of finding you. One day you'll see that everything does connect. You'll be able to look back and see that all those dots, all those experiences have got you where you are. And I think that is really magical. So I'm going to leave you with a little song I used to sing to myself when I was younger, all the way to a couple of years ago. And I'm not going to read it out because that's weird. It's going to be on the screen for you. Thank you.